My name's Jeremy. I work with the advanced team. I'm really excited to be here for the first Retail Media Network Summit in Toronto. I was recently at NRF. There was such a buzz around this. I'm sure many of you were there as well. And it's nice to see that sort of echo here and be able to continue that conversation here. It's a really fast evolving space. And frankly, I'm really excited to be building all of this with you. It's not something that any one network or advertiser or agency or whatever can do by themselves, and I think it's the collective efforts that we have here in Canada that will turn this into what we want it to be in the coming years. And what I wanted to do was spend some time talking about where we are and where we're going and how we should think about connecting those 2 points. Big number on the screen behind me. You're going to see a lot of these in the course of the day today. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the $5 billion, because I don't know if that actually, you all know that this is an important industry, otherwise you wouldn't be here. One of the main drivers for this happening today, it's often phrased, RMNs are often phrased as the third wave of digital advertising following on search and social. And there's a lot of discussion as to what that means, how fast it's growing. But the point is, it's here, and let's think a little bit about, how long is something, how many football fields in length is it? What I like to do is translate it to something that I know really well. So I've spent many years in media thinking about advertising and traditional TV, for example, and in a couple short years from now, we're expecting retail media networks to attract double the dollars of traditional TV. And that's significant, to say the least. It's for a fundamental reason, which I'm going to expand on as we talk about today, and that is that dollars will always go to a better, more measurable solution, right? At the end of the day, dollars seek out the best mousetrap, and I want to talk to you a little bit about why I feel RMNs sit in that space or are credible in that space. But I also don't want to just be talking to you about the future, because one of the things that came up at NRF that I thought was quite funny was, 2022 is going to be the year of RMNs, and there was 2023 is definitely going to be the year of RMNs, and then okay, well, this year, 2024 this is the year of RMNs, and I think it's worth stating that this is no longer an emerging media format. This is here. As it stands right now, 20% of all dollars are going into RMNs, and the reason for that is because it's not in the startup phase anymore. It's a trusted part of a marketer's playbook. And for those of you that are sitting on that side, that are marketers, you know this already, because again, you're here and you more than likely have this as part of your media plans. But I can't just talk about today and tomorrow without start talking about where retail media is and is today as well. When we think about shopper marketing, the format has changed a lot. When we think about what happened in the retail environment before, it was very simple. You have your flyers, you have your website maybe, you have signs on the shelves, and it was really done as shopper marketing tactics. It was done for e-commerce. It was really driving conversion in the lower funnel. But just as media spend has evolved over time, so have retail media networks. And I think that's a key thing that I want you to take away from today's conversation. What you can do now, the myriad number of touch points that exist, whether you're offsite or in-store or on digital properties, these networks can be leveraged to drive brand awareness. They can be used to drive, adding something else to your cart. There's a whole variety of tactics that can be fulfilled using these if you understand how to flex them to what you're actually trying to accomplish. And so it's not just the evolution of media, it's the evolution of these platforms themselves. Okay. There's a lot here. We have literally filled an afternoon talking about RMNs, and there's a lot of ways to get at this. And I thought what I would do is maybe just talk through it in the way that I approach this. I try to simplify things. I tend to be a very first principles kind of person. And so how do I think about RMNs is what I'd like to share with all of you. So the first thing is this idea of just, frankly, meeting people where they are. Right? We talk about omnichannel, we talk about unified commerce. We want to be able to reach customers where they are. In our world, in shopper marketing, we talk about touching customers, and I've been trying the whole time I've been up on stage to not say touching customers, but I just wanted to say it out loud, so I got that off the table. The other thing, though, is the intersection of brand storytelling formats and the data that retailers have, right? The intersection of what that means for user behavior and where there's opportunities that lie there. And then lastly, actionable insights and measurement in a general sense, and what I think our industry needs to do in the coming years. So let's start with unified commerce. So where does this journey begin for most retail media networks? It begins digitally, right? I think all of us we're part of the pandemic. As far as I know, nobody got to opt out. So you all saw the amount of dollars, like frankly, probably in your own behavior, but you've seen channels where e-com made a big jump. But that behavior has been durable. It's not like we've seen a regression to mean where all of a sudden people just went back to stores and the e-com dried up. What has happened is a certain degree of durability, and this user behavior is now entrenched. And this echoes what you see in the US, in the UK, in Canada. It is the same story here. And so if you're a marketer, what does that naturally predispose you to do? Well, what it does is it makes you think about how do I deploy marketing tactics against an e-com purchase journey, right? So whether it be sending a newsletter, whether it be digital flyers, whether it be the behavior online, building a cart, creating a seamless user experience, all those things, they're all things that we think about when we think about this through a digital lens. But the problem when you think about it through a digital lens is you miss the forest for the trees. And so if I look at the data at Loblaw, 90% of our sales still happen in the store. So it's not saying e-com's not important, it's incredibly important. But people are still in the store shopping, people are still in the store buying. But I do think you need to have this lens. So let's just go to the other side of this now. Let's think about, well, okay, fine, we're not going to do digital because it's only 10%, we want to focus on the 90%. So let's do a traditional purchase journey along here. So we're going to have out of home in the car on your way there. You're going to see some screens when you're in the store. You're going to listen to some audio. You're going to throw stuff in your basket, and you're going to check out. It's going to be a delightful customer experience. But again, if you think about it, we're really just sort of driving from one ditch to the other ditch, right? We've too much time on physical, too much time on digital. It again is missing the point. And the point really is the idea of an omni-channel purchase journey, right? The idea of unified commerce, the discovery and product discovery, to buying. Like there's a variety of ways that people move through space and buying decisions. We see things like buy online and pick up in store as a really common behavior in our customers. We see research online and buy in store as a very common behavior. And these things mean that when you think about the myriad and the drastic increase in marketing touch points that you have available to you, you have to have a plan to be able to address all of these things. So the idea is not to think about, the physical journey or the digital journey as an or, but to think of them as an and this isn't just, a theory of me standing up on stage talking about this. If I were to look across our campaign data that we're seeing on our platform right now, we see that advertisers that are layering tactics across different modalities and different audiences are seeing major lift in their conversion success, 65% in this case. So it's not just theory. We're really seeing this play out in the real world. Okay. Let's shift to the second trend. I really like this one. So I spent most of my career building consumer digital products and working in digital strategy. In fact, media was a vice I seem to have picked up late in life. The thing that's really interesting when you think about the way that behavior shifts over time is it's a couple things. One is major technology shifts, right? The landscape shifts, the iPhone is created, whatever it might be. But the other thing is user behavior. As behavior shifts, they drag what we do into different dimensions as well. And that happens in consumer products, but it definitely happens in media. So you can think about the simplest example, right? The Walkman and the iPod did the same job, but one did it a lot better. And over time, going back to the idea, the better mousetrap attracts the dollars. And that's what we're here to talk about, right? How do we make that better mousetrap? So let's talk about connected TV. So connected TV is a massive, and growing shift in the media landscape here in Canada. It's soon to be $1 billion worth of ad spend that will be happening there. I for one don't have traditional TV at home. I'm sure I'm not the only one in this room that can lay that claim. But whether it be streaming platforms, whether it be smart TVs, these are becoming new surfaces where we can find customers, where we can engage with our customers in a meaningful and relevant way. And this shift, frankly, is entrenched and only going to continue to grow. For those of you with children in the room, I challenge you to explain traditional TV and traditional ad breaks to any of them. It is the most bizarre and surreal experience, and I tried this recently. It makes no sense. The other big shift, when I think about it from a technology perspective, is the kind of privacy-first culture that we're now incubating around the internet, which frankly I love. I think this is something that's long overdue, and we all collectively want to have an internet that works in a way that is privacy first. And what that means is there's a rising importance of first-party data. And it's very difficult to be relevant to customers without first-party data. In particular, if we think about the disintermediation that's happening with the deprecation of third-party cookies. Increasingly, it's harder to find your customers on the web. That is just a fact that is happening. And retailer commerce capabilities are the thing that allow, and those loyalty programs allow you to drive that relevance. But we often talk about these technical shifts, these technology shifts out in the future. But the reality is they're here today, right? So we anchor on news. 1% of Chrome users are now going to have third-party cookies blocked. That was announced in January by Google. Okay, but 50% of users already don't have third-party cookies. That's already happening. If you use Safari on your iPhone, you don't have third-party cookies. If you use Safari, or if you use Firefox, you don't have third-party cookies. So this is here. So if you're an advertiser trying to reach your audience, like, you're already impaired in being able to do that. And so to respond to that threat, or that shift, maybe threat's the wrong word, the shift is, what we're seeing is these major partnerships that are happening, right? We see, retail media networks partnering with streaming platforms, with connected TV platforms, to basically create the same thing that existed, if you're watching an episode of Mad Men right now, big TV buy, the shopper marketing play, and retailers, they're doing the same thing from a user behavior perspective. And when I say user, what I mean is both the advertiser behavior, things that work from a storytelling perspective, knowing how to get and drive merchandising opportunities, but also a user behavior from people, right? So they're still watching television, they're just watching it in a different way. And what this does is basically allows these new media formats to create a better mousetrap, right? And one that is actually measurable, that can be planned with agility, things that couldn't really be done before. Okay. Third one, actionable measurement. So this is really just the thought of, as we talked about the dollars now flooding into this ecosystem, the more that happens, the more demand that creates. Frankly, the more we need to be able to create a proper, trusted measurement and verification system, right? It's not enough for us to just simply say everything is great. There needs to be a way of objectively verifying that that's true. And for those of you that are marketers in the room, I think you'll all be deeply aware of this. I mean, there's a lot of data that shows it's really hard to tell an effective story about where marketing dollars are going and how effective they actually are. And I think, certainly as somebody who works in the space of creating these platforms, the last thing I would want to do is create something that's even harder to measure. So maybe I'll just quickly talk about what I mean when I think about measurement. I think about it along three dimensions. The first is credibility, the next is scalability, and then the last is actionability. So credibility is basically just creating trust between the RMNs and advertisers, right? We can't build this ecosystem together without that trust. The second is standardization, consistency, etc. It's very difficult to scale a business if you can't trust that it's been standardized in some ways. It's easy to run 10 campaigns when you're just sort of sticking it together with duct tape and dental floss, but when you get to thousands and thousands of campaigns, there needs to be standardization. And then lastly is the idea of being able to drive actionable insights. Data on its own is not helpful. Insights that can be actionable are. So let me just expand a little bit. When I think about credibility, I think third-party verified data is foundational to building trust. We don't want to be, I think a decade ago, for those of you that were media planning with the big social networks, there was a lot of grading of our own homework. And I don't think we necessarily want to be in that place. I think we want to be in a place where there's an objectivity to it. At Advance, for example, we are currently partnering with Cone to verify our in-store network. And I think that's really important work, because I'm going to have a point of view on what works and what doesn't work and what's effective, but I would love for somebody else to mark my homework, right? And I think that's important for all of us on both the advertiser side and the network side to be really to hold hands on and build this together. The next bit is this kind of like alphabet soup of metrics that we can collect. And again, I use the example forest for the trees, and I often think with measurement it's the same thing. In product development, we have this concept of vanity metrics, which is just because we can measure it doesn't necessarily mean it's particularly helpful. And we have a lot of that in this industry. And again, this hurts scale, right? If we can't compare one retail media network to another in a way that's trusted, then how do you as an advertiser actually figure out how to plan, how to buy, how to do those things? You also, if things aren't consistent, it's difficult to just have a common language, right? If you speak to us at Advance, it needs to be the same way as if you speak to somebody at another retail media network. We need to have a shared and common language. And so I think at Events, we're really excited to be part of this work. My partner in crime, who leads our measurement science practices here, and has seated me with a lot of this. But I do think this is an area of deep exploration and importance, I think, for us as a business and as an ecosystem. And then lastly, we started off with, you saw an ad and you made a purchase, and that's basically what we would tell you, right? And that's kind of where this whole business starts, and that's fine. I mean, everybody starts somewhere, but we clearly need to go further, right? We need to get to causal data, to actionable insights, to really be able to understand what's happening. And look, it's easy for me to stand up here and say, we need to test and learn together. Everybody says test and learn. I'm in product. By definition, I should have a test and learn tattoo. I might have one. And the whole point is, it's just, the idea of being able to go from purchase attribution, frankly, to be able to tell the story of incremental sales lift is the journey we all collectively want to go on together. And that means being clear about campaign objectives. That means being really clear about, is it a new product innovation that's going to market? Is it a product that's been in market for a long time, we're trying to win share? But being able to work on that together, advertisers, networks together, agencies as part of that, my hope is we get to a point where these actionable insights are really far more broad across the industry. Okay, I'm going to that was a lot. Just going to summarize really quickly and move on. So, again, I hope if you take away anything from this, it's that when you think about planning our customer journey, you are meeting your users where they are, your customers where they are, thinking about it in a unified commerce landscape, thinking about behavior shifts and partnerships, how that might work, and then lastly, this idea of building an actionable and credible measurement infrastructure together. So, to expand on this a little bit further, instead of me just prattling on, I thought I would invite my friend Jesse up to come and have a deeper conversation.
Well, first of all, thank you, Jeremy, for running us through all of those trends. That was a lot to digest. So let's dig in a little bit more into some of those. I'm going to go back first to talking about measuring success. So when you're thinking about metrics and measurement and how those vary from retailer to retailer and brand to brand, how do you define retail media success?
Yeah, so it really is what I said in the last part of my presentation, which was, look, I think it would be great if we could also get to incremental sales lift. I think that's what we just want to have. It's a number, we agree, we move on with our lives. But I don't think it's going to be that simple. So when I think about success, it's about being really clear with your partners about what you're trying to achieve. Different tactics, different, as I said before, if you're bringing a new product to market, you're trying to grow your share, you should get really aligned on what it is you want to measure and define that success up front. And then have a mechanism to test and learn. And I think the reason why test and learn matters is with the older versions of retail media, let's call it that, they weren't necessarily measurable. So how could you test and learn on something where you couldn't measure the output of a campaign? Now, the value proposition is that you can. So you can actually drive that wheel because you've got that data to feed back into it.
So we hear a lot about this concept that retail media is media. Raise your hand if you've heard this. Okay, not too many. So more.
Let me explain how I think about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think, this goes back to the opening slide. We've been talking about retail media as an emerging format for years and years and years. And I guess maybe there's a bit of has it actually arrived? And I think that the point is it has. And so whether it be, people like me on the platform side or advertisers who are driving dollars into this, having this as part of your media planning and being able to think about that in concert with the other tactics that you're doing to drive your brand is something that it clearly is media. It's here.
So when you think about retail media as an overall omni-channel strategy, what are your thoughts on organizational mapping within companies to kind of break down those silos and allow for that truly omni-channel approach?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. This is definitely one that I think many of you in this room, I'm sure, are wrestling with. So I think it looks in kind of three ways. The first is I'll say, what the work we're doing in advance, for example. One of the things that really underpinned our business was the idea of having a single sales team. We go to market and we help advertisers, suppliers, whatever the right word is. We help them with our media, we help them with our loyalty programs. We basically help them on all the buying activity that they can do. We help them sort through that through one single door into our business. And that unification allows us to have a better relationship with those partners. So that's the first kind of organizational thought when you think about omnichannel. The second is, frankly, having a product strategy that goes across all these things. This is in some respects, as I said, an emergent space, so it means that different networks are going to have different capabilities. Some of them will be joined up, some of them won't be joined up. For us, we're in some respects, we're mature in some areas of our journey, in other places we're still very nascent. But bringing not just the omni-channel, the talking points together, but actually a platform that works together in a really coherent way is, at least for us at Advanced, like the primary driver of our strategy. But if you don't have that at the network level, it's really hard to think about the campaign tactics I talked about earlier on. And then the third part, which is really in the control of suppliers and advertisers themselves, is just as we now have a single team on our side, we would look to you to think about the same. And what we see often is that a lot of brands still have really divided buying teams. You've got your e-com team over here, your end team over there, and if there's not good cross-pollination and good join up between that, it means you'll never be able to create the kind of campaigns that we see drive real effect. So, for me, when I think of omnichannel, it's omnichannel in terms of like how do we run campaigns, but really it's about bringing all these aspects of our industry together.
All right, so it wouldn't be a retail media conference if we didn't talk about the elephant in the room, which is, of course, AI. AI is the buzzword. So how do you see AI playing a role in being an opportunity for retail media?
So there definitely is a buzzword, but I think let's just think about it two ways: what's already been done and what we're thinking about in the future. AI, machine learning, et cetera, has played a large part in our business for a long time. It's not, in some respects, it's not new. It's the way that we deliver relevant search. It's the way that we figure out product assortment. There's a variety of use cases that are ready as part of our business. But when I think about what it means from a retail media perspective, I think there's some really interesting use cases that we're exploring actively, and I know many others in the industry are doing as well. Firstly, search and ad relevance is something that I think is the utopia, right? We want to be able to give. Nobody really hates ads; they hate irrelevant ads. In some respects. And so, if we have the idea of working in service of the customer, right, and our job is to serve people things that are relevant, this is a place where we think AI has a real role to play. So that's the first one. The second one is, a retailer like us, we have a massive assortment, hundreds of thousands of SKUs, of which, the data in that is not always the same, not always normalized. So that impairs our ability to run a effective search product, or to be able to actually surface relevant ads. So we're using AI right now, and Gen AI specifically, to help build out our product catalogs, to put imagery, to put metadata, to put adjacency, all those types of things in place, so that we can build a more coherent mousetrap, like I keep going back to. And then I think the third thing is just at a creative campaign perspective. What we're starting to see a real emergence of right now is being able to sort of create what I would call autonomous campaigns. So the idea being that you use image generation and copy generation in such a way that you can quickly scale creative campaigns to work across various channels, whether they be display ads, whether they be sponsored search, or whatever it might be, but to do it in a way that, I don't want to overload the word programmatically, but it's done in a way that the computer actually helps you. You don't need to have an entire creative team do it for really small tactical executions, which ultimately helps things like A/B testing and being able to really figure out what campaign creative works better than others. So that's, in a nutshell, something I'm very excited to see.
So taking that a step further, let's talk about the future of retail media and end on maybe a little prediction or a bit of advice for our attendees today. What do you see as being that number one tactic that's going to be most valuable in the marketer's toolkit?
Yeah, so it's funny, when you ask this question, I have like 100 answers. So I don't know if I can get to one specific tactic. I'll answer maybe in two ways, as I'm sort of thinking about it. So the first is, look, I think partnerships are going to be really important. I talked about the overlap between RMNs and connected TV. I think that's a massive strategic importance. And I don't mean just for the networks, it's something we're thinking about and want to do, but I do think for advertisers, I think it changes the game on the way that complete area of media planning has happened in the past and will happen in the future. So I think that's one. But the second is, I would actually say, and this is the kind of maybe the meta point of what I've been trying to land, which is retail media networks are vast in what they can accomplish for advertisers. And so whether you're trying to create a brand awareness campaign, whether you're trying to drive conversion, whatever it might be, it's about being really clear about what that thing is, what those outcomes are that you want to achieve, and then aligning your measurement strategy against it in such a way that it drives to those results over time. And so if you take anything away, it's being purposeful and not assuming that a retail media network is a tool of only one thing. It really is this Swiss Army knife in some ways.
Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for being here with us today. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have, but let's give Jeremy a round of applause, shall we?